Hey, thanks for showing up to the channel here. If you're a life insurance agent and you've been a part of the industry for a really long time, or if you've been in a part of the industry and it's only been a couple of weeks or a few months or whatever, I think this video is for you because a lot of times what happens is when we are entering into life insurance conversations, we wonder why people didn't end up purchasing the solution that we have for them. And then even if you kind of move them along the process, you're kind of wondering throughout the entire process, are they going to close? Are they going to close? Are they going to close? And you're wondering if is what I'm saying, how I'm communicating, is it effective at all? And so what we're showing on the screen is literally an internal training that I'm actually going to be sharing with my team today, and this is kind of what we're rolling out here. And so we're utilizing something called NEPQ, and so I want to give credit where credit is due to Seventh Level and Jeremy Miner, and ultimately we have taken one of their higher tier offers, and we have really started to apply that to our company because we've been blessed to a large degree when it comes to people that we have coming in, sales that we've made. But at the same time, there's been a lot of missed opportunities as well. And I think a lot of you guys who may be watching this can resonate with that, especially in the life insurance arena. So what we're going to cover today, not going to go through everything. More will be covered in future videos, but we're going to talk about the first couple of stages within NEPQ, or Neuro-Emotional Persuasion Questioning. Specifically, we're going to talk about the connection stage, which is only has one phase within it. And then we're going to talk about the beginning of the engagement stage, which accounts for 85% of the entire sales interaction. And so we're only going to be talking about phase one of the engagement stage. And so that's where we're going to get into it. So let's hop into it. The purpose of the connection stage overarchingly is to reduce resistance in the first 30 seconds, but even more specifically, the first 7 to 12 seconds, because prospects are going to make a judgment about you in that short of a period of time. In other words, they're going to put you in box A, which is category other, which is really where you want to be, or they're going to put you in box B, which is like literally everyone else because you sound like everyone else. You're using verbiage as the same as everyone else. And so we want to be in box A simply because it's considered what I would call a pattern interrupt. I think Jeremy Miner may define a pattern interrupt a little bit differently, but everything that we're doing, this entire process would be considered a pattern interrupt because of the fact that we are not doing and communicating in the same way that every single other salesperson communicates. And I think that matters a lot. And so we don't want to be like everyone else. We would rather be in category other. So when it comes to the connection stage, it's all about, we want to start off with considering the ABDs of selling, and we want to do that immediately. If you heard of any of Jeremy Miner's teachings, you know that the ABDs of selling is pretty much like counterintuitive to the ABCs of selling. ABCs of selling says always be closing. And when people have that mindset of always be closing, what ends up happening is they have this like really weird way about them, and they almost kind of have this sales breath about them as well. And prospects pick up on that, and that could be one of the reasons why you're not closing many sales to begin with at this point in time. And so again, if we come to the call like everyone else, we're going to come off as salesy, and that's not what we want. So if we're saying things like, hey, how's your day going? Or hey, how's the weather over there? Or hey, you got family in Vermont? You live in Vermont? I got family in Vermont. Oh my gosh, so cool. Like, we're trying to have these fluffy commonalities and stuff like that. Your sales just not going to land very well at all. And so you want to kind of get away from that. So consider something that a mentor of mine from 8 years ago mentioned to me, 8, 9 years ago, which was, look at what everyone else is doing and don't do it, or at least consider what everyone else is doing. Study what everyone else is doing and make sure that you do not do those things, because then you're going to sound like everyone else as well. When it comes to one of the first things that we're saying within a call, we want to use a status frame, and by doing that, we kind of lower resistance. And so ultimately, we're downplaying intensity and making the call feel very low pressure. An example of this is the first part of this call. It's pretty basic. Like, we're getting them to a point where they go, "Oh, you're not like overhyping what the call is actually going to be about," which is incredible. Other ways of kind of downplaying intensity is using phrases like possibly, or if we can help, or what you might be eligible for. Things like that really are incredibly helpful. Okay. Now, please note this. When it comes to connection in the connection stage, it's not about fluff. It's not about surface level rapport about random things that you have in common with folks, right? Um, Connection stage is strategic and it is foundational, but it does not mean that we are trying to find commonalities and grasping at straws when it comes to that. Rapport is built through this phase, and at the same time, rapport is a matter of being coming across as professional, coming across as someone that can be trusted, and really not wasting their time, right? And so, um, yeah, I just wanted to highlight that as well. So there's some other things that we could get into as well, but in terms of the core, everything that I will be sharing with my team is what I want to share with you right now in terms of the connection stage. So let's move on to situation questions, which is the very beginning of the engagement stage. The purpose of this is to understand what the prospect has in place right now and really just get a lay of the land. Okay. What are the facts regarding what they came to you for, right? And so this is important because if we don't have the facts, we really don't have anything to go off of moving forward. This is all about, like, the situation questions is all about the what, like what's going on, not necessarily the why behind it. Is it important to talk about the why behind it and have a conversation about that? The answer is yes. But are we going there yet? We're not quite going there yet. And so your job here is to ask questions and you want to just sit back and observe. Like, when you're asking questions that revolve around the situation, what you want to make sure that you're doing is you're jotting notes down regarding things that you want to come back to or you want to delve deeper into. But your job in the situation, with situation questions, is to get a lay of the land. What do they have in place in terms of life insurance coverage? Who are we getting the life insurance on? What, how do they feel about the safety of their money, especially if you're getting into whole life insurance or even other types of permanent cash value, permanent death benefit, high cash value policies, because there has to be a value proposition. In other words, there needs to be a problem that they're experiencing, whether or not they would articulate it as a problem. And then also you have to, like, have that in the back of your brain. Therefore, once we pivot into the problem awareness stage, you know which problems to actually drill into. Um, Now, in the past, I think even in a prior video here, I mentioned that people make decisions with emotion and then they justify those decisions with logic. I might have even only mentioned the first part here. So I might have just mentioned that people make decisions with emotion, but I'm adding to the fact that they actually justify those decisions with logic. And so this is why where NEPQ is important. Neuro-Emotional Persuasion Questioning. We're delving deeper into the emotion to become a top 1% earner within your industry, specifically within this life insurance industry. Um, and so if you hear, as you're going through this and you're hearing emotionally driven statements, emotionally driven words, or if you really want to probe into that early on in the phrase and you haven't finished up situation questions, what you want to do is just resist that urge and then write those questions down on your note sheet or whatever you have. Therefore, you can come back to those. Those types of problems will be reserved for the problem awareness and situation awareness questions. Okay, um, or solution awareness questions. Let me actually make that change right now. Solution awareness questions. We just want to get clear for situation questions. We just want to get clear on the actual situation that's really ailing them right now. The tone of the situation question should be one that feels relatively easy. It definitely should feel more casual and conversational. And you want to get away from being in interrogation mode. Like, I need to get all this information, so I'm just gonna ask, right? Like, is that helpful and will that work at times? I think for sure. Like, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I think if you want to close on more people and gain trust, you have to remember that prospects are doing whatever they can to keep their guard up, to put their guard back up. Okay. They're doing whatever they can. They're thinking through that. And so what they want to do is, if you are doing this thing to where you just interrogation, their guard may, even if it started off kind of low, is starting to come back up again because they're starting to kind of not trust you. Cause it's like, man, is this a tactic or what? And so that's kind of something that we have to be aware of. And so I got a couple of examples that I want to show you. But before I do that, this part right here is really important. When you sense that every single one of your questions is starting with who, what, when, where, why, how, that means you're in interrogation mode. And so you want to pivot that by using lead in phrases. Specifically, one example that I want to share with you is just asking two different questions in the exact same way, or sorry, the same question in two different ways. One would be, what's the details on the second policy? Nothing terribly wrong. I'm not saying you should never use a phrase like that, but be reminded, if you're constantly saying what this, what that, how this, how that, who, where, like, that's how you start the beginning of your sentences. You're probably coming off in a way that you probably don't want to. But a way that you could have a lead in phrases. You mentioned you had two Northwestern Mutual policies. I think I only caught one of those so far. What's the details on the second policy? Right. That's another way of asking the exact same question, especially if you've caught yourself asking question after question after question that has no lead in phrases whatsoever. There should be some variation. It's not like every single question needs to start with a lead in phrase, because then that in and of itself can start to feel like a tactic. But if you kind of have it, you'll switch it up and you have a variation between the two, it feels more like a natural conversation. Think about conversations that you've had with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers that are not scripted in any way, shape, or form. You would when you start to really see this, you'll notice that you're going to have lead-in phrases at times, and you're going to have, just direct questions at other times that don't include that, because that's the natural way of having conversation. Now, one of the things that I want to highlight, I kind of got into this earlier, but we're not yet pointing out gaps that they have. We're not yet highlighting the problems that they have. We want to get there, but again, we're going to do that in the following phase of the engagement stage, not here during situation. We want them, our prospects, to yes, come to the conclusion on their own. And the way that they do that is through questioning using the NEPQ format. So when I say we want them to come to the conclusion, one of what we're doing is we're kind of, inching them toward, like, their bigger problem than I realize, simply because of the way that we're asking the questions, simply because of the questions that we're asking. They go, I haven't considered that. I haven't thought about that. That's a good question. And the hope is that you're going to get more and more of that as you delve deeper into something like NEPQ, because self-discovery is more persuasive than us telling them. We have all this knowledge in our head and we just gotta tell it to everybody, right? No, we don't want to do that. Okay. We want to be skilled sales professionals that actually have a heart of service and care, where we are asking questions and helping them get to a point where we're guiding them to self-discovery of, this is a bigger deal than I actually realized it was from the very beginning. And so again, we want to take note of those problems that we're hearing along the way and make sure that we come back to those later. And last thing I'll say here is this: for every question that we ask, we should be thinking to ourselves, especially from phase to phase to phase to phase. But obviously, we're talking about a situation here. We should be asking ourselves, is this question doing me any good? Is this question helpful for me right now in this stage, or is it not? So, in the example of situation questions, am I gathering the facts and understanding the situation at large, or am I kind of delving into the problem and trying to help them to peel back the layers of emotion a little bit more deeply than you should during the situation stage, right? So that's a wrap for these first two. I'm gonna come back here and I'm gonna record some separate videos specifically for problem awareness stage, specifically for solution awareness questions, consequence questions, qualifying questions, the transit, like everything. If you've looked it up, NEPQ, and you know anything about Jamming Minor in seventh level, they have done some incredible work, and it's an honor for me to be able to go through, get coached by these people in particular, relay that to my team very specifically in our own company, Better Wealth, but then even relay this to you as well. So reply in the comments if you have any questions for me whatsoever. Happy to help in any ways that I can. And I'll see you in the next one.